lovely. That was a bit of John Mayer. Good Love Is On The Way, quality riff. And that would normally be played on a Stratocaster or a Stratocaster type guitar. I think we might have to say now because of the whole... Yeah, exactly. Welcome to another guitar show. This is your free guitar lesson coming live every Sunday on the Andy Guitar and the Your Guitar Academy YouTube channels. This is a part 2 of an episode that we've done on the Boss Katana and the Boss Nextone amplifiers, with the intention of kind of displaying what these amplifiers can do, but also showing you guys how to get different sounds and tones and emulate certain songs or players with whatever gear that you happen to have and whatever gear you might want to have in the future. So the last episode was on the really obvious kind of very effects laden sounds, including Nirvana, Smells Like Teen Spirit, the kind of edge delay, and the classic rock tones of the 70s, I would guess. This episode, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the subtleties. Do you want to take over and say what we mean by subtleties or characteristics of amplifiers? What am I talking about? We've got kind of different families of amps that have different characteristics. You might kind of think of the Marshall amps, like you said, classic 70s, that quite high gain, versus something a bit more twangy like a Fender. You know, they don't do the same things, and if you want the cleaner twang, you're not going to go to a Marshall to get the same sound, and if you want that big boomy high-end gain, you're not going to go to a Fender, you're going to go to the Marshall. And that's what we mean about those kind of different characteristics. You get different types of sounds from different amps. And before the purists start, keyboard warriors start plowing away in the comments, of course, kind of Fender amplifiers can be... Of course, yeah. I believe it's the Fender Bassman that the Marshalls were actually trying to do their version of. They were trying to copy it authentically. It ended up slightly different, but does a kind of similar thing to the Plexi. What we want to communicate is that any one guitar amplifier typically isn't going to do everything, and it depends what you put into it as well and what you're playing as to where certain sounds or certain amplifiers kind of come to life, and that family of amplifiers, as we kind of say. So I guess, should we start on the cleaner side of things? Yeah. And you were doing kind of a clean Hendrixy thing earlier. My attempt at a Hendrixy thing. You know, not a lot of gain for this kind of sound. Do you want to just strum a G chord just to give people a bass sound? So the amplifier is doing virtually nothing there. That's all the sound of that guitar, that pickup. But again, the amplifier always colours it, and there what we're going for is that kind of Fender sound. And like you were saying, sound. We're not going to get a Hendrix tone from an SG. Just to try and show people a little bit, if I'm on the treble pickup. Just kind of, we're not going to get that. That's very much not just the type of amp, but the type of guitar. Having a Strat does a good bit of the work, and then just the kind of careful configuration of the amp and the EQ and the gain settings and all that, tone on the guitar, all like little subtle changes that come together to make that part. Just for an example, you turn the amplifier onto the clean channel there, but because I've historically always used humbuckers, so I grew up playing an Epiphone Les Paul, I never thought the clean sounded any good at all. And what I would always do is either keep it on the dirty channel and turn the gain down on the overdrive channel, or take the volume down on the guitar itself, which I feel, some kind of, I've gone out of tune a little bit, but if I take that down, that gives kind of a sweeter, and that was just a quick example. I'm not saying that sounds amazing. It just it works better with the gear that we have. With humbuckers, the common thing was to just take the volume down to really clean them up. Just like to make single coils sound heavier, the common thing is to take the tone control down, and then you're instantly sort of beefing up your sound, and you're putting the right thing to get the right thing out. Could you add a bit of reverb to that or something, or maybe a bit of the Univibe or something like that? Univibe? That would be on there as well. It's one of them. Around here. A bit
more of a treble.
So is it this particular one that you own? Is it the 100 that you have?
I've got the Artist, which is I think it's the highest end version of it.
What made you go for the Artist?
It's just got...
as opposed to any other amp in the world, not this one?
Yeah.
Why'd you go for it?
Well, actually, I had a student come in who showed me, I was a little bit kind of, I wasn't really believing all the hype about the Katana. Then he brought it in for me for a week. I was like, oh man, these are great. These are so good. That was 100 he brought in. And then...
which is this model we've got here, the Katana 100.
Yes, this is the 100. And then I just saw some comparison videos of the Artist, the different, the bigger speakers, the slightly, it's got more banks, and some slightly different functions. And
would you say that's your gigging amplifier?
Yeah, it is.
It's pretty phenomenal, but in the band that you're in, you need to create a lot of tones, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just and as well, like the overall quality just of the clean channel, because I always kind of go through the clean and then
as a default.
Then put my effects and my dirt and stuff through that front of the amp. So just
pedals for your overdrive and fuzz and things like that.
Yeah.
Which you can still do with this. In fact, it's even got an effect send and return if you choose to do that.
But it's just the clean sound for that. It's just so good. It's so, and that's what I love. I prefer the clean Strat.
And that, what I've always wanted these sort of amplifiers to do is get that plexi sound, which is one of the harder ones to recreate, because the whole idea of it is it's a loud volume and hitting you in the face and that movement of air, which it's hard to kind of simulate any other way. But if you want a clean sound, you actually don't want a lot of what a plexi amp would be colouring the sound with. You just want your guitar going through that. Great. So let's put a little bit of dirt on it, I guess. Can we go for like a Clapton style? So we're on the crunch channel, I guess.
Crunch, and then I think I'm going to bring in a little bit of boost, and already you can hear it starting to...
So that boost is adding a pedal before it?
Yes, a pedal in front of it. And then I'm going to pull the tone back a little bit. Maybe a little bit more.
Old slow hand, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe if I did a little bit of arm still clean. And I believe it's Sunshine of Your Love that was originally kind of recorded on one of these, but Eric Clapton's known to kind of use the Strat sound, isn't he?
Yes.
A blackie, just like that, actually, a black one. Yeah, it's a gorgeous guitar. What year is this exact model? People always geek out over your guitars, Chris.
It's based on a 57.
Based on a 57. What year was it made?
Oh, 2010, I think.
I believe you're trying to get rid of this one. Anyway, so what else can we go? So that's kind of that 70s, early 70s, late 60s crunch sound,
that's a little
which
bit
you can do with a bit of both, really. I guess the crunch on that is one of those old Marshalls. What's the Cream amplifier? I'm trying to think now. Blues Breaker, that's the one. Kind of Blues Breaker style.
That was the sound we had, and then I added which really colours that a lot, doesn't it?
I think, I don't know.
No, I think it is. No, it is. Absolutely.
So it's kind of the power of pedals as well, which is what this is kind of emulating.
Absolutely, and that's what this one doesn't have. This one just has the delay and reverb. But this one is claiming to do some of those subtleties between the amplifiers. So let's see if we can go for this. So I believe, if I'm right in thinking, we have the American and then British side of things. So two valves which are different. American style amplifiers and 2 British. So we have the Marshall and the Vox.
What would you say the subtle differences would be between those styles of amps?
What I would be wanting to hear on the British side, which is definitely more subtle, is a bit more, and we're getting to this this word that was battered around before filming, a bit more of a squidgy sound. And we're probably not going to hear it with this guitar actually. Let me try the Les Paul. Okay, so what we're looking for here is this Marshall sound to have a bit more of a glassy top end.
Oh, that sounds
bit
good.
more of that kind of AC/DC thing, but I think this guitar will show more of the range. And then the more Vox one, just a bit more squidgier, a bit more in the mids, a bit more, yeah.
He's enjoying that.
Say again?
You're enjoying that, I can tell.
Queen, absolutely. And then on the American side, we have the cleaner one, which is more, again, it's not going to instantly go cleaner because it's not simulating any particular amp. It is using, I believe, the circuitry of that valve style. Is that what it does?
It revoices the whole amp. It revoices the preamp and the power amp stage.
You got that, didn't you? It revoices. Again, if you want a gear review, this is not it. We're just trying to use the things. So that, my point was that if you leave the gain exactly where it is and click between the valves, the gain doesn't obviously change. It's not like changing between one of these where it's the clean and then the overdrive and then a lead sound. It is subtler than that. What I would want is to roll down that volume.
Yeah.
And you would, again, we wouldn't be expecting that. We're wanting to judge the overdrive on it and we're not wanting it to be totally clean. This one should go heavier, but have the potential for more gain because this is a more American high gain sound. So let's see what the highest gain setting sounds like on this. Now this would be art. That's probably too much, really. It's kind of
too much gain.
Sustain, ladies and gentlemen, sustain.
That is beefy.
It's great. Excuse me. So, the other amps, all the other settings do not have that same amount of gain when it's at the top end because the valve wouldn't quite get there.
That's so different, that sound.
I'm going to try and pick a favourite regardless of what I actually say. And do you know what? My favourite so far is actually this one.
That's too spongy.
It's very spongy though, isn't it? It does have that, and apparently there's a difference between the half and the maximum on the wattage.
Yes.
This is on half wattage at the moment, so there will be a noticeable volume shift when I do that. It just got twice as loud.
The sound of it's different as well.
taking us back to last week, mate.
Don't start that.
I am preferring the tone for that sound, though, from these than we got from, frankly, a couple of really good valve amplifiers.
Really good valve.
This one is really delivering it. And again, it's delivering it out of the box. Historically, I love that plexi sound from old recordings of Led Zeppelin and, you know, that frankly more modern bands have done over the years, like The Darkness, and that sort of sledgehammer of it hitting you. But that amplifier would only give you that when it's perhaps in a studio, in a soundproofed room, when you can actually turn it up to 8 out of 10, which is ridiculous volumes. And amps like these just deliver them kind of on a plate, and you can even save them as a preset and have them on the button. For
far less money as well.
For practically nothing. It's it is insane what is on offer these days. And then the reason to upgrade to this from an amplifier that's perhaps come out of as I say, a starter pack or anything, the bigger speaker cone instantly gives you that better sound than a smaller speaker cone. And then the quality of the overdrive that we're getting from either of these amps is just so superior to ones at a similar kind of range.
So much better.
But also giving you the range of different amplifiers. You're not having to decide between... At the moment, I'm imagining that most people watching this are thinking, what style of guitar am I wanting to do? What would I want an amplifier to do? And both of these amplifiers are great learning tools for that. Back in the day, what I kind of learnt was a Boss ME50, actually.
Yeah.
That was, and I've now got an ME70, just to have basically every pedal that Boss do, all in one pedal. I've had it for 10 years. They never break down. They're so reliable. They've done as many gigs as me, which is probably about 2,000 or something like that, like a ridiculous amount of gigs, and they're always there, and you've got every effect available to you. But I used it as well as a learning tool to see what sounds were available when we've got the joy of the electric guitar, which does kind of everything. Effects like Univibe. I only actually know about that one because it was on the old Boss ME50, and I was like, oh, that's new. No, not heard of that one. Let's check it out. The Boss that I had back in the day used to claim to kind of simulate single coils if you put a humbucker into it, and a humbucker if you had put single coils into it. They don't tend to do too much of that anymore, but again, that was such a great learning tool for me when you've only got one guitar, and you would read in guitar magazines or read on the internet, I guess these days, about the difference of this, and you kind of notice a difference, but you could suddenly kind of do it at a click. There's an invaluable learning experience there that is it's great to kind of get your hands dirty, get stuck in there and see what these kind of things sound like. Of the subtleties between them, again, the amount of gain can be a little bit misleading, I think, at times, because at the same sort of stage, different kind of characteristics came out. What were you looking for when you did the kind of what about for a John Mayer type tone? Which is a tone that you can easily, you can definitely get from your fingers. What are you wanting your amplifier to do? Is it just, or what you describe as this great clean sound that you think this amplifier does so well? It's
I suppose the kind of the extent of the sound and the pushing it can do of the amp itself without breaking up. So a lot of amps, the gain is very important as a tool on your amp. And a lot of the times, the more you push the volume, inadvertently, the more you push your amp or the gain as well, which means your sound starts to get that edge, that bite, which we don't want. Well, Andy wants, but I don't want in that. So these are so good at achieving more volume, but keeping the same gain level the whole way through. And through pushing the amp without the gain, you start to bring out the characteristics of it more, and it starts to sing, and that's what this thing does so well. Probably
absolutely. The 100, the Katana, both Katanas do that very well, and it is why you were mentioning earlier. That's why you purchased an Artist. Is it an Artist 100 you've got?
It's just
out of choice, because out of all the amplifiers you were trying, at least at that budget, but just in general, you were like, the clean sound on this thing is phenomenal. And that is a hell of a recommendation from someone who wants a clean amplifier because this thing's got all the bells and whistles on it of every amplifier and effect you would ever want.
It's the added bonus of these amps as well. Like, you get the Tone Studio, and it's got every pedal that Boss has ever done for free just on the software, and you just plug it in.
And talking about the subtleties of that, though, I would totally agree with you that the clean sound, you know, turning it up, it doesn't break up or act like a lot of amplifiers kind of would, even if they're a clean amplifier like a Fender or something. But that breakup is actually something that I'm looking for with the sounds that I'm going for, which is more on the style of this amplifier, and it acts more like an amplifier as well, when you, as in creating the sound you want when you're stood in front of the thing. That, I think, emulates so much closer the sound of recordings and the sound of what anyone's favourite band sounds like on the stereo, in the car, on headphones. If you want that tone, that amplifier does it as well as, if not better than anything, regardless of budget.
Yeah.
This responds more like an amplifier,
actual amp.
And when you're stood in front of it, no matter what guitar sound that you like, recreating that sound, it's going to sound different if you're actually playing it and stood in front of the amplifier as to when you record it and listen back. They're two very different things.
Yeah.
It's really hard to communicate that unless you've heard it, but especially seeing as I've always wanted to be able to create this kind of plexi sound that I keep going on about, of the old 100-watt Marshall Super Lead, but again, on 7 or 8 out of 10,
which is
with microphones in certain places, move in the air to be able to create that. And yes, I guess sometimes we want what we can't have, and that was always the thing that I couldn't get from these sort of things. These really do so much of that. But when you go so in depth into I want that certain sound and the characteristics, and you can tell the difference, that is why people might spend £1,000 or £2,000 on something that's a bit more. It's exclusive. It doesn't do a great range of. You don't buy a £2,000 amplifier because it does everything from Van Halen to Hendrix.
Yeah, exactly.
You buy it because it does a certain thing which you really like. So yeah, it is kind of like, what are we talking about when we're talking about these subtleties? And hopefully a lot of this episode has helped demystify a little bit of that, but we're just trying to give an overview really, and try and give a, you know, using these amplifiers for the first time and seeing what we can do with them, in the hope that other people will have the confidence to have a bit of experimenting themselves.
It's tricky over YouTube as well, because it's one of those things, they sound so different when you're actually in the room with
Absolutely.
them,
It's the one thing you'll never be able to simulate, and the one thing that I would recommend, if you've found this interesting at all, go to a guitar store and try one out. They are free to try, and you'll never, you know, we have a microphone in front of both of these amplifiers, and we're not EQing the sound or changing anything. You know, what you see is what you get. That is what they have sounded like. But you're probably watching this on a mobile phone where the speakers are that big, and we're hearing this out of a big amplifier in this room, and when we turn it up a little bit, it makes a big difference. So all those sorts of things, I hope that has helped you a little bit on. I'm trying to think of anything else that we haven't covered yet. One other thing I would like to mention is that both of these amplifiers have a line out, which would be for recording, and they also have a headphone out as well, which is a similar thing. That is essentially bypassing the amplifier's speaker, which I do think is a real learning curve, because most amplifiers have a line out or a recording out or a headphone out, but that is simulating the sound of the speaker that it has, but it's always going to sound kind of different. And as a just a practical way that all of you guys watching this video now, with whatever amplifier you likely have, can hear what we mean by listening to the sound of your amplifier in a room, or judging a tone from being stood in front of an amplifier, and what it sounds like when it is recorded or in another situation like through headphones. So the line out or record out would essentially, a summary would be EQ. It will do more than that, but essentially EQ your sound to make it sound like it's coming through a speaker, or at least that's what they all used to do. And that will give it the tonal characteristics of the speaker and the perhaps even the power amp section, I presume. just going through that process and perhaps recording your guitar, even just on your phone, you can plug this straight into your phone and hear the sound there. Just as that comparison between an amplifier heard in the room and the speaker cone working and everything like that, and then hearing it on headphones. I think that's a really valuable exercise for all of you to do, especially those of you that haven't heard this before. And, you know, essentially when you go down that route, there are little headphone amplifiers that cost next to nothing, but then you always have to hear your sound on headphones or through speakers. And what people miss is having a real amplifier that you can just plug in, turn on and think, oh, that sounds great. You know what I mean? And then when the neighbours are out, you can turn it up even louder and think, oh, it sounds even better. There's just it is like kind of revving the engine on a bike or a car, isn't it? There's a primal thing about it, and it is wonderful. That's us for today. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, another guitar show. This show is your free 30-minute guitar lesson every Sunday. Subscribe to the Your Guitar Academy YouTube channel and the Andy Guitar YouTube channel. Episodes ping pong between the two channels every Sunday, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.